I'm making this video mostly in response to the reactions I got from one of my previous videos where I proved Destiny 2 was a free-to-play game. I was honestly amazed at how many people were being disingenuous about Destiny 2 being a free-to-play game, or didn't even want to acknowledge reality. And some people even went as far as to make up their own definition of what free-to-play means. I mean, free-to-play is a very black and white concept. Either a game is free-to-play, or it isn't. This is essentially what I saw as I was reading over those comments. For those of you who don't know what free-to-play actually means, here, I'll show you. And don't worry, I didn't make this up unlike what Aztec Ross did in his video when defining pay to win.
With that in mind, we can now assign a definition of pay to win in Destiny 2.
And if that isn't enough, we can also check out the other search results to back up what I'm talking about. The first result is a Wikipedia page. Free-to-play video games are games that give players access to a significant portion of their content without paying, or do not require paying to continue playing. It is also separate from freeware games, which are entirely costless. The most common is based on the freemium software model, in which users are granted access to a fully functional game, but are incentivized to pay microtransactions to access additional content. Of course, some of you might not see Wikipedia as a reliable source of info, so don't worry. We can also check out the other search results. Here on Techipedia, they explicitly detail examples of what purchases you can make in a free-to-play game. And would you look at that? New levels or downloadable content is on the list. Sounds awfully similar to Destiny's expansions and dungeons. And if that wasn't enough, well, too bad. I'm not going over any more sources. Y'all can go ahead and look up the information yourselves if you can't accept the facts I presented. Now that we got that out of the way, I also want to make some things very clear. I do not like the state of microtransactions currently in the game, nor do I support it. Buying expansions and paid DLC is way harder than it should be. And the new player experience is severely lacking a narrative players can follow. I am by no means defending Bungie. I'm just looking at things objectively. Sound familiar? Well, it should if you watched my previous Destiny 2 video, because I literally said the exact same thing verbatim. And before I continue further, I would also like to add that I am in no way saying that the free-to-play experience in Destiny 2 is perfect, or that it's the best free-to-play experience out of any free-to-play game, because it's just not true. I'm just acknowledging the fact that the game is indeed a free-to-play game. With all of that being said, for the rest of the video, I'm going to take the opportunity to draw out comparisons between Destiny 2 and other free-to-play games people always bring up when debating Destiny 2's free-to-play model, and then show what Destiny 2 might look like if they adopted their business model. I'm going to try my best to keep my comparisons apples to apples, although I'm pretty sure that some of the comparisons I make might seem like comparing apples to oranges. But that's going to be due to the stark differences between genres rather than the business models. To be as consistent as possible, I'm going to be comparing the playable content, monetization, and legal issues the company behind each game has faced. That last part is really only important for one game I'm going to cover, but to be consistent, I went ahead and looked into legal issues behind every game I'm talking about in this video, to be as fair as possible. Let's start off with the number one game that is always being brought up in this debate, Fortnite. Fortnite is the North Star people always point to when talking about what a free-to-play game should be like. And with over 1 million concurrent players at any given time of the day, I can see why people look at the game with such adoration. But if Fortnite has the ideal free-to-play model in the industry, then why is it paying out more than $500 million in 2 record-breaking settlements for FTC violations? For non-Americans, the Federal Trade Commission is a government agency that investigates and prevents unfair methods of competition and unfair or deceptive acts or practices affecting commerce. Basically, their entire reason for existence is to protect competition and consumers. Now, what did Epic Games do that was so bad? Well, I can summarize what they did into 5 main points. They violated COPPA, which stands for the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, by collecting personal data from children without their parents' consent. Their default settings harm children and teens in the form of harassment, which sometimes turned into sexual harassment. They used dark patterns to trick users into making unwanted purchases. They charged account holders without authorization, and they blocked access to accounts whenever people would dispute charges. Now, if we look at Bungie, they are also undergoing a lawsuit, but it's for an entirely different reason altogether. Bungie is being sued by a former HR manager for wrongful termination and retaliation. I'm not going to dive any deeper into that issue because it has nothing to do with the business model of Destiny 2, but I thought I'd bring it up to stay consistent in my comparisons when talking about legal issues. As for playable content, Fortnite has 8 core playlists, but ultimately it has 6 unique game modes. Also, we can't forget what the actual Fortnite base game is, Save the World, which is a PvE mode you have to pay $18.50 for. So, I guess not everything in Fortnite is free after all. One of the great things that Fortnite does have is the creative mode, which is like Forge from Halo, which is something that Destiny 2 doesn't have anything comparable to. However, there is only one map in Fortnite, but to be fair, it has been updated 31 times from Season 1 to Season 26. As for weapons, Fortnite currently has 20 weapons in-game, with 252 weapons sunsetted. So in comparison, PvP wise, Destiny 2 has 27 maps currently, and a total of 346 weapons in-game, with 212 sunset weapons. PvE wise, there really isn't anything that is close to what Save the World is, but Destiny 2 offers more PvE content for free than a singular paid PvE mode that Fortnite offers. Then again, this is where user-generated content from creative mode carries Fortnite. Although the variety and depth of content is very limited, much like how Forge is in Halo. As far as monetization goes, Fortnite has one type of premium currency called V-Bucks, which can be used to pretty much buy anything in the game from cosmetics to battle passes. And if you buy the battle pass, you can perpetually buy future battle passes so long as you complete all the tiers with V-Bucks rewards. The only things you can't buy with V-Bucks is the base Fortnite game, Save the World, and the new subscription they now offer. That's right, Fortnite now has a subscription you can get for $12 a month. Destiny also has one type of premium currency called Silver, which can be used to buy seasonal battle passes, which comes with playable seasonal content that cycles out every expansion. And you can also buy cosmetics and DLC, either expansions or dungeons, although this is an area Bungie needs to improve on, both in-game and in retail shops. They really need to learn how to bundle their DLC better for the benefit of the consumer. Now, after going through everything in Fortnite, let's see how it compares against Destiny 2. These numbers are based off of the free-to-play experience of both games. As you can see, Destiny has way more playable content compared to Fortnite, which shouldn't come as a surprise, seeing as we're comparing an MMO light game to a casual third-person shooter hybrid game. But what if we were able to look at what Destiny 2 would look like if it followed Fortnite's development pattern? Well, we would have way less content than we do now, strictly looking at it from a free-to-play perspective. But even then, Destiny would still have a little bit more variety in terms of maps and weapons. And if you're curious about how it came up with 12 maps instead of arbitrarily reducing it to one map to match Fortnite, it's because at launch, Destiny 2 only had 12 maps. So I thought it'd be fair to use that as an equivalent, since Fortnite has been updating the same map since launch. And for the weapon availability, I used the same ratio as Fortnite's, which is 20 available weapons out of a total of 272 weapons that were developed for the game, which roughly comes out to 7.35%. And if we use that number with Destiny's total free-to-play weapon count of 558, we arrive at 41 available weapons. Overall, we're looking at less playlists, less game modes, less maps, and less weapons in the game. Hell, we probably wouldn't even see expansions being developed. Only just seasonal activities as free updates that get cycled out at the same cadence of Fortnite's updates. But hey, at least we'll be able to perpetually buy battle passes after a single purchase, and have the option to buy membership for the game. That's what people want, right? Keep in mind though, that this part of the comparisons is 100% subjective, since we're talking about a hypothetical. No one would really know what Destiny 2 would look like if it adopted another development strategy, except for Bungie themselves. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the next game. League of Legends. League is developed by Riot Games, who was involved in a class action lawsuit a couple years ago, where they had to pay out a $100 million settlement to 2,300 female workers that were affected. For playable content, League has 4 core playlists and 5 unique core game modes, with the featured game mode on rotation for a total of 6 game modes. And there's only 2 permanent maps, one for Summoner's Rift and one for ARAM. Then there's a rotating map for rotating modes like Nexus Blitz or Arena. As for playable characters, there's a total of 166 champions currently, and 20 of those champions are always available on the free rotation list. As a 100% free-to-play player, it's unknown how long it will take to unlock all the champs in the game. Here are some estimates I found online when doing some research. Keep in mind though, that these estimates does not include using champion capsules, champion shards, or Hextech chests, which would drastically lower these estimates. In total, it takes over 500k blue essence to unlock all the champs based off of my account. And honestly, I couldn't tell you if I ever unlocked any champs because I decided the game wasn't for me after a couple matches several years ago. Of course, the cost becomes way lower once you receive champion shards, which gives you a huge discount for that champion. Now, do you need all the champions? No, not at all. But in a game that revolves heavily around rules and counterpicks, having more options is better than having less. As for monetization, League has one type of premium currency called RP, which used to stand for Riot Points in the past, but I guess it's just RP now. RP can be used to buy anything in the game from champions and cosmetics to battle passes. Also, not only do they charge for skins, but for some skins, they also charge for having different color options even though you already bought the base skin. Then for battle passes, this game sells 2 battle passes, one for League and one for TFT. Keep in mind, you can't perpetually buy battle passes after a single battle pass purchase in this game. And yes, I'm including TFT as part of League of Legends, because when you launch the game, you can choose to play a TFT from the League launcher. If you choose not to count TFT as part of League, that's fine by me. That just means the League has one less game mode if you want to try to compare it to other games. Now that I've gone over all the content League has to offer, let's see how it compares to Destiny 2. Right off the bat, Destiny doesn't have anything comparable to champions except for maybe weapons. But in an effort to keep it apples to apples, let's exclude champions and weapons. Again, we can see Destiny 2 has more content, but just like with Fortnite, it shouldn't come as a surprise considering the League is a PvP only MOBA game. So let's go ahead and see what Destiny 2 would look like if it adopted Riot's development pattern for League. Again, I'm using the number of maps at launch instead of arbitrarily reducing it to match League's map count. And again, you can see that Destiny 2 would have way less playable content overall compared to what it has currently. And let's not forget about having no DLC content or seasonal activities. The only things that would stay the same are cosmetics, seasonal events, and battle passes. One difference is that you would end up with cosmetics that are equivalent to the chroma skins in League, where you have to buy colors for a skin you already own, if you didn't buy the complete chroma bundle. But of course, this is another subjective comparison, so who knows what Destiny would look like with the League of Legends method of development. On to the next game, which is also developed by Riot Games. Valorant. Valorant has 8 playlists with 3 unique core game modes. Using Call of Duty terms, they are Search and Destroy, Gun Game, and Deathmatch. There are 14 total maps, but they are split into 2 categories: 10 Search and Destroy maps and 4 Deathmatch maps. There are 23 characters you can play, of which only 5 are free off the rip, with the next 2 being very easy to unlock. After that, it's going to take a bit of grinding to unlock the rest. You need 8,000 kingdom credits per character, which is the free in-game currency. You get 600 per day for doing dailies, and depending on the game mode you play, you can get around 15 credits to a max of 126 credits per match. To keep things simple, just using the amount you get from doing Spike Rush or TDM and only doing the dailies, it will take roughly 11 days to unlock a single character. In total, it will take about 169 days of playing 8 games every day to unlock all the characters. But just like with League, you technically don't need to unlock every character, but again, having more options is better than having less. Then for weapons, there are only 18 you can use in the game. As for monetization, Valorant has 2 types of premium currency, Valorant points and Radianite. Valorant points can be used to buy agents, cosmetics, the battle pass, and the other premium currency Radianite. The reason I call Radianite a premium currency is because it's used for upgrading premium skins that you buy. Sure, you can earn some for free in the battle pass, but you can only get 30 Radianite per season, which is just barely enough to buy all the levels for one color on one premium skin. Even after 2 seasons, you still wouldn't have enough Radianite to unlock all the colors for one premium skin that you already purchased. In fact, it will take 10 seasons of grinding out the battle pass to tier 49 every season just to be able to upgrade all the premium skins in a bundle that you already spent money on. Premium skin bundles vary in pricing depending on their tiers, from around $30 on the lower end up to $100+ on the more premium tiers. And for most bundles, the knives cost about half as much as the entire bundle if you try to buy it separately. Of course, you can get 160 Radianite if you complete the premium battle pass, but at that point you're spending an extra $10 on top of what you already spent for premium skins. Also, the battle pass doesn't give you Valorant points back, so you can't perpetually unlock battle passes after buying it once, or save up to buy future passes. Now that I've gone over everything Valorant has to offer, let's go ahead and see how it compares to Destiny 2. It should be obvious that Valorant doesn't have any PvE content, so let's cut out the PvE content on Destiny's side. And instead of using individual weapons, let's use weapon archetypes instead to keep things more fair on Destiny's side. This time around, the super abilities in Destiny are the most similar to the individual characters in Valorant. But in an effort to keep it apples to apples, let's disregard both of these elements for each game. After stripping so much content, Destiny still has more playable content when strictly looking at it from a PvP-oriented perspective. And if we then decide to look at what Destiny 2 would look like if it followed Riot's development pattern for Valorant, we can see that we end up with even less content after all that. Not to mention no new weapons, no DLC, no seasonal events, or seasonal activities either. But at least we'd end up with 2 premium currencies, and premium skins to need further upgrades after dropping money for them. Now that we're done with the subjective comparison with Valorant, let's move on to the next game. Genshin Impact. I can't believe someone went ahead and brought up Genshin in the Destiny 2 free-to-play debate. To start things off, Hoyoverse actually doesn't have any lawsuits filed against them, even though they have gambling in their game, which is quite surprising honestly. But hey, to their credit, they're the first company so far in this video that hasn't faced any legal issues. For playable content, you can play through everything the game has to offer, including their entire story and side quest for free, if you don't mind the mobile game time gating for leveling up characters and weapons. This game doesn't really have game modes or playlists, but more so different types of activities you can do. You have the daily commissions, which are a way to get Primo Gems, one of the premium currencies in the game. Then you have ley lines, where you fight enemies to earn money or XP materials. Then you have the domains, which are broken into 3 sections: regular domains, boss domains, and the Spiral Abyss, which is the only in-game activity Genshin has to offer, despite having launched 3 years ago. Then for the last accessible activity from the Adventurer Journal, are elite enemies you fight for materials, similar to how regular and boss domains work. Besides those activities, there's also random challenges scattered throughout the world, along with chests and puzzles you can do. Then there's ongoing events that you can participate in. Also, there is co-op mode, where you can play with friends, but based off the restrictions, it seems like a way for people to carry others in challenging content. Especially since when you join someone else's world, you can't do any of the main story quests, you can't pick up stamina upgrade collectibles, you can't open chests or get rewards from completing puzzles, and I assume this extends to random challenges as well. Other than that, there's really nothing else for you to do in the game except explore the open world. Now for the bread and butter for Genshin, the monetization. Genshin has two types of premium currencies, Primo Gems, which I mentioned earlier, and Genesis Crystals. There is a gambling system referred to as gacha for acquiring new characters and weapons, where you use these currencies. In total, there are 73 characters and 129 weapons that you can potentially unlock in the game if you're lucky enough or have enough money to spend. The equivalent for this in Destiny would be having subclasses, supers, exotics, and some legendary weapons locked behind loot boxes that can only be purchased using premium currency. Of course, you don't have to spend money or need all the characters and weapons that are featured in the gacha, but if you want to make things easier for yourself, it is possible to throw money at the game until you get what you want.
How much did you spend on Genshin Impact?
At least 10k.
Okay, so how much money have you spent in Genshin Impact?
Lily, just be honest.
Techno, why don't you break the ice? How much money did you spend on it?
Realistically, I've calculated it. I have spent $360,000 on gacha games.
For now.
For now.
So how much have you spent, Lily, on that game?
Yeah.
But like the average to C6 a character is like what? 1.5k on
Yeah.
average. And I think I have like 6-7 event characters C6.
Okay.
So that's that's way more money than I
Okay,
thought.
so we're talking
Probably
like this is like a
20 grand.
$15,000 situation?
15 to 20 grand probably, because I also got the weapon for almost all of them.
And in addition to the gacha system, they also sell skins for characters. Overall, Genshin is a very casual game that requires little skill to play, but requires dedicated farming regardless of how much money you throw at the game, which only feels so bad because it's a mobile game. And that's pretty much everything Genshin has to offer. Let's see how it compares to Destiny 2. Here's an equivalent comparison, but let's go ahead and remove things to keep it more apples to apples. After doing that, you can see that the weakness of Destiny 2 is the strength of Genshin, and vice versa. If we look at what Destiny 2 would look like if it copied Genshin's development style, you can see that we would get the entire story for free, but at the cost of having less replayable content. And the in-game content would be equivalent to an extended version of the Deep Dive activity from Season of the Deep. So goodbye raids, dungeons, and nightfalls. And we can't forget about the monetization. In the context of Destiny 2, that means having classes, subclasses, supers, exotics, and some legendary weapons locked behind loot boxes. And that's it for the subjective part of comparing Genshin to Destiny 2. Let's move on to the next game. The critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV. To start things off, the only lawsuit that Square Enix was involved in was with the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog over his removal as director for Ball and Wonderworld. I won't dig any deeper than that, since it has nothing to do with Final Fantasy XIV. For playable content, there's actually a fuck ton of shit you can do in the free trial. You get to access the base game and the first 2 expansions for free. And you can potentially be a free-to-play player for as long as you desire. But do keep in mind, there are some restrictions. For playable content, Final Fantasy XIV has 74 raids depending on what you count as raid content, and if you include the higher difficulties of the same raid. Alliance raids are probably the closest thing you get to the equivalent of Destiny's raids, and there's 9 of them. And there's 57 trials, which are just usually boss fights with multiple phases. Then there's 64 dungeons, plus 2 roguelike dungeons called deep dungeons, and that's all the content I'm going to talk about. There's plenty more activities you can do, but I'll just focus on the main pieces of content that everyone engages with the most. As for monetization, besides paying for the base game, expansions, or subscriptions, Final Fantasy XIV has one type of premium currency called Krista. It's used to buy in-game items, subtime, and other various services. You get 100 Krista per dollar, and you can hold a maximum of $500 in your in-game wallet. One thing that I find odd is that Square Enix doesn't give you bonus currency when you buy the larger bundles. This is the first game with premium currency I encountered that does this. Based off of what I could look up online, the stuff you can buy in the shop includes story skips, level boosts, skins, and mounts. And I assume there's a lot more you can buy. The reason I can't check for myself is because I'm not subscribed and can't access the free trial since I paid for the complete edition a couple of years ago. Imagine not being able to access content that's free after paying for the game. But I digress. And that pretty much covers all the playable content the free trial of Final Fantasy XIV has to offer. So let's see how it compares to Destiny 2. As you can see, the free trial for Final Fantasy XIV is loaded and offers way more content than the free-to-play experience for Destiny 2. And this is actually the closest to apples we can get. Now let's look to see how Destiny 2 looks like when copying Final Fantasy XIV's model. You get to play the campaigns for Shadowkeep and Beyond Light for free, as well as gain access to the Forsaken, Shadowkeep, and Beyond Light raids, dungeons, and Nightfalls. Which sounds amazing for free-to-play players, but for people who would pay for content, that means they would have to pay for the base game of Destiny 2, plus the newest expansion, and a monthly subscription on top of that. Which means you'd be paying way more over a longer period of time to play the game than you would currently with the one-time purchases for DLC. We're talking about paying X amount for the base game, which is $20 for Final Fantasy XIV, so let's assume that's what Bungie would charge if following the same monetization model. Then the latest expansions for Destiny 2 cost $50, but let's also assume they'll follow Square Enix's steps and charge $40 for the latest expansion. And finally, the subscription fees, which comes out to $156 for a year. So you're talking about a $216 starting cost for new players who want to access everything in the game for just 1 year. And once their sub expires, they wouldn't even be able to play the free version of the game anymore, even though they already paid for the base game. Okay, that's it for this objective comparison. So let's move on to the next one. Lost Ark. There was no lawsuits I could find that involved Smilegate, to my surprise. As for playable content, the entire game is 100% free. Lost Ark has a total of 25 classes to choose from. There's a lot of activities in this game, and I'll also exclude PvP because if I include it, it will just inflate the amount of content for Destiny 2 in the comparisons. There's 8 Chaos Dungeons, 26 Guardian Raids, 4 Chaos Gates, 22 Field Bosses, 13 Abyssal Dungeons, 2 Abyss Raids, 5 Legion Raids, the Ebony Cube, 5 Ghost Ships, and the Tower, with 3 different versions, which is a buttload of content. But a lot of these activities do lose relevancy when you reach higher gear levels. What this means is that for most of this content, once you reach a certain gear level, older content no longer has any value. To put it in Destiny 2 terms, it goes from the value of doing a raid or dungeon, all the way down to the value of doing a patrol. Basically, nobody does that content once they're able to do the higher difficulties for that type of content. As for monetization, Lost Ark has 2 types of premium currencies. There's blue crystals and royal crystals. Although, you can buy blue crystals with the gold you earn in-game. Then there's also a battle pass with 2 premium tiers. It's $30 for the super premium tier, and $20 initially to get the first premium tier. Sure, it's 1500 royal crystals to buy the pass, but there's no $15 bundle in the shop, so at minimum, you're forced to spend $20. And none of the tiers offer premium currency or any other ways to buy future battle passes. And just like any other free-to-play game, they also sell skins. In addition to that, you can also spend money to speed up your leveling process by buying upgrade materials. To put it in the context of Destiny 2, instead of farming higher light level items to infuse into your gear, you would have to spend materials in a gambling system just to incrementally increase your light level for that piece of gear. It's equivalent to spending X amount of glimmer, plus X amount of legendary shards, plus X amount of enhancement cores, plus X amount of enhancement prisms, plus X amount of ascendant shards, plus 1 upgrade module, just to increase your light level by 1 for each level beyond light level 1785 currently. And the reason I call it a gambling system is because it's possible to fail an upgrade in the Lost Ark Conan system. Sure, if you played the game like a job, you can upgrade your gear without spending money in the game, but the possibility to throw money at the game to get stronger is still there. I did the math for how much it would cost to reach a max hone-in level on a weapon using optimal materials with no failed attempts. And this is with buying everything from the player market on my server, buying gold with royal crystals, and buying silver with gold. Keep in mind though, that almost no one who plays the game seriously buys silver with gold. With an exchange rate of 4k gold per 238 royal crystals at the time of making this video, which does fluctuate often, I arrived at a total of 139,162 royal crystals, which is equivalent to a little over 2.3 million gold, which comes out to somewhere around $1,159 to $1,392, depending on which bundles of royal crystals you buy. And I would like to reiterate that this is without failing any upgrade attempts, so the real number would be much higher than this estimate. And keep in mind, this is only for 1 weapon. You'd have to repeat this process for the remaining 5 pieces of gear for your character. Now, some of y'all may be thinking, nobody's gonna be spending money to do that. Well...
So on just the weapon alone, how much?
To be completely honest, maybe out 1,500, 1,000, something like that. I've been swiping so much, I kind of like lose track.
Yeah.
Since I've spent about... How much did I spend? I've spent about like $700,000.
Wow. Yeah, so that's, guys, that's about with exchange rate, that's equivalent to 800,000 USD, but like, but if you consider the exchange rate, the actual true conversion would be about $730,000.
And that's it for Lost Ark monetization. Let's go ahead and compare Lost Ark to Destiny 2. Right away, you can see that Lost Ark offers way more content compared to Destiny 2. And this is pretty much an apples to apples comparison. So then let's see how Destiny 2 would look like if it took Smilegate's development approach. As you can see, you pretty much get access to all DLC content for free. But then, that means we would have the same systems that Lost Ark has as well. I'm talking about the honing system for upgrading gear, the ability to buy currency and upgrade materials for money, 2 premium tiers on the battle pass, and player trading, which also has a currency you need in order to buy or trade items on the player market. And knowing Destiny 2 players, they would be up in arms if Bungie ever decided to add these systems to Destiny. That's it for the subjective comparison against Lost Ark. Next up is probably the only game that can come close to Destiny 2 in terms of genre and fantasy. I'm talking about Warframe. Digital Extremes hasn't been involved in any legal issues that I could find, but it has closed its publishing division and announced layoffs, which mostly affected employees that had been hired for about 3 months or less. More than 30 people were affected by this. The only reason I bring this up is because recently Bungie let go about 100 of their employees, so it's somewhat relevant. As for playable content, Warframe allows you to play everything in the game for free. including its content updates. There are 44 mission types available in the game, with 14 mid-game to high-end activities featuring the same mission types, usually with a twist and better rewards. Even though there is technically PvP content, I'm not going to include it because literally no one that plays this game participates in those modes. It has to be by far the worst PvP experience out of any online shooter that I have ever played. And I have been playing online shooters since Unreal Tournament in the 90s. There are 170 primary weapons, 136 secondary weapons, and 212 melee weapons. Then there are 95 Warframes, or characters in total. It takes 12 hours to craft individual Warframe parts, then another 72 hours to fully unlock a single Warframe once you have all the parts crafted. We're talking about a total of 108 hours to unlock a single Warframe, and this does not include the time to farm materials. The only exception is Equinox, where it actually takes longer, for a total of 288 hours of crafting time to unlock. If you want to unlock all the Warframes, then it comes out to 10,440 hours of just crafting time alone. And not only do you craft Warframes, but you also craft weapons, vehicles, and companions, as well as breed pets. Now, of course, you don't need every single Warframe or weapon, and you're not forced to stand around and do nothing while you're crafting stuff. But this information is important because it ties into how the game is monetized. This game has two types of premium currency, Platinum and Regal Aya. Platinum is the primary premium currency, while Regal Aya is exclusive to the Prime Resurgence shop. That's right. Remember that update Aztec Ross mentioned in his Destiny 2 microtransaction video?
Next up, we have Warframe. The updates are free.
It was an update to add a shop to the game, and to change the way they monetize their process of adding back content they take out of the game. And this isn't anything new, it just replaced the old system of Prime Vault access, which is more consumer friendly because it had better value for the dual packs. In the current system, a dual Prime Warframe pack would cost you $60 minimum to purchase, which, to be fair, was the same price before Prime Resurgence was introduced, but in return, you're getting way less than before. Although, this is only for the duo packs. The single Prime Warframe packs have stayed the same in terms of value and cost. For the Prime Vault Access duo packs in the past, you'd get 1200 Platinum in addition to the bundle you purchase, whereas now, there's two paths to purchase the same packs. You can either buy the two lower end bundles to get just enough currency to buy the duo pack, but you'd end up with 600 less Platinum. Or you can buy the higher end bundle to get more than enough currency, but then you'd be spending $20 more than before to get the same amount of content and Platinum you would have gotten in the old monetization model. Of course, you'd still have 5 Regal Aya left over, and that would be enough to buy another unvaulted Prime Warframe, and you'll still have a couple of Regal Aya left over to buy some extra stuff. And that's the background on the Prime Resurgence update. Besides the Prime Resurgence shop, there's the main in-game shop for Warframe that uses Platinum. And oh boy, Destiny 2 players are not gonna like this.
But I've never had a problem with cosmetic microtransactions. A lot of people will now mention the slippery slope argument. Yes, Dado, we start with shaders, emblems, emotes, but who is to say that they won't introduce materials, armor, or weapons in the future? If we see legendary guns for sale, if we see legendary marks for sale, I'm gonna be mad. If we see something like 100 motes of light for $5, I'm gonna be mad. I don't wanna see power sold, I don't wanna see shortcuts to power sold, nothing. If Bungie does cross that line, you have my rage.
But the point is, when did earnable loot start getting packaged up and sold? I think that when it comes to earning in-game weapons, it should never be sold.
Of course, the number one argument for why people accept this level of monetization is because of the ability to earn Platinum in the player-driven market.
And you can earn the paid currency in the game's player-driven market, so it too is essentially free.
To be fair, he's not wrong, but I just wanted to point out the example he used because it's really bad. In his example, he's showing a trade for 5 items, which takes about an hour or so per item to get, depending on your RNG, for 5 platinum total, which is equivalent to around 6 cents to 33 cents, depending on which platinum bundles you buy. So we're talking about a rate of 1 penny to 7 pennies per hour of farming for those items. This perspective honestly has the same energy as you can earn money on stocks if you play the market. Platinum doesn't appear out of thin air. There are literally 0 ways for you to earn platinum through gameplay. Platinum only enters the market because people pay real money for it and then use it to trade with other players. And that pretty much covers everything Warframe has to offer, so let's see how it compares with Destiny 2. Now do keep in mind that these comparisons don't include any of Destiny's PvP modes or Gambit. Still, we can see that Warframe offers more content and more mission variety. But one thing I forgot to mention is that Warframe doesn't really have an in-game activity that rivals the quality or difficulty of Nightfalls, dungeons, or raids in Destiny 2. That's why for this comparison, I used the term high-end activities instead of in-game activities. Let's see how Destiny 2 would look like if it followed Warframe's model. Basically, we would get all DLC content for free, weapons wouldn't be sunset, and you would have access to all the supers in the game. Although, it would take literally thousands of hours of crafting everything in order to unlock them. Also, we can't forget about the monetization model Warframe has. We're talking about charging for inventory space and vault space essentially.
I'm gonna be mad.
Selling the equivalent of exotics and legendary gear in the in-game store.
I'm gonna be mad.
Selling every single resource and material in the store.
I'm gonna be mad.
In addition to locking over 90% of the cosmetics behind the store. And of course, the bread and butter, taking stuff out of the game, then reintroducing it at a later date alongside a bundle you can purchase for real money.
If Bungie does cross that line, you have my rage.
So now that we're done with the subjective comparisons, let's move on to the next game.
I don't know about you guys, but I really need to see what Overwatch has to offer, don't you? Let's go take a look, shall we? What happened? Where's the fucking game? Well...
That's a really good question, isn't it?
A few years ago, we made the call to focus our team's development efforts almost entirely on Overwatch 2, and as development of the sequel stretched on, it meant that the live game received less focus.
Yeah.
He explained this meant that the company was no longer delivering on one of its core values to support the game by updating it and delivering content on a regular basis. So they abandoned Overwatch 1 to work on the sequel, something that they regret doing.
Yeah, they abandoned the game to work on the game that they abandoned. It doesn't sound too good when you say it that way, huh?
Honestly, I can't believe someone said that Overwatch 2 offers everything for free when it's just not factually true. Not only did they fail in trying to make PvE content similar to what Destiny 2 does, they're actually selling a watered down PvE experience than what was promised initially when they announced the game. So I'm not even going to bother doing a comparison between Overwatch 2 and Destiny 2 because Overwatch 2 at this point is a fucking joke. And I feel sorry for the people who still play the game. It's basically the equivalent of Bungie deciding not to release any more DLC after the Warmind expansion back in 2018 and opting to do the seasonal model instead. Hopefully one day they will deliver on what they promised years ago, but in its current form, Overwatch 2 is not even worth talking about. To their credit, at least Bungie didn't give up on their game, like Blizzard did with Overwatch. Or at least, not yet. Only time will tell how things will turn out after the final shape. To those of you that made it this far in the video, thank you. I appreciate you. Now, I know all of you are smart and intelligent people, so I don't need to tell you how these buttons work. Right? Of course not. Also, if you want to talk about video games or whatever, you can head over to twitch.tv/honestpug to catch one of my streams. You can find out whenever I go live by checking my Twitter. Currently, I'm giving away free PC games based off of my follower goals. I have at least over 200 games to give away listed under the giveaways channel in my Discord. And once again, thank you for watching my video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Be safe out there, and until next time.